What's up guys? You clicked on This Week in Hacking. This week, some updates, some exit scammers and token loggers, database leaks, and more, so stick around because I have to welcome you to This Week in Hacking. This is really a big story. Verity's database was leaked. This leak was pretty big in my opinion. This included people's hardware IDs and people's last IP they used to log in. I replaced them so I don't accidentally dox anyone. Some very well-known people are in this leak, such as Michael XF, and hack. Alts.WTF are a really bad generator site which have a skidded website, and the 12-year-old owner, Mystic, buys alts from King Alts and resells them, until a week or two ago. I'll put up some screenshots now of Mystic being an absolute fucking retard. He's scamming for alts and it's really funny watching him rage. Both Penk, the owner of King Alts, and Rito from Whisper both are really great guys who basically exposed this retard. He's so bad that even I made a meme about him. Volume warning by the way. Anyway, this Mystic kid I haven't heard from for a while. He probably got beaten up by his best friends at school. In other news, Pulsive updated. It's in B12 now. I've been playing on it in this video and it's quite alright actually. Again, remember that this is a very experimental format. I've been thinking about doing news like this similar to OG Alert by X in a Box, and Hypixel Alert by Lego Maestro. If anyone wants to voice these videos, I'm very happy to allow you to do that. Contact me on Discord. The Discord isn't public just yet since I'm quite lazy, but however it will be joinable very soon. So, it turns out that Genesis was a ratted and token-logged client. This means that the creator, Matt, was able to log into your Discord account and potentially use your credit card or PayPal to buy Nitro for others. The owner said that he wanted to get people off intent, but the actual reason was because Nefarious was asleep when he submitted it to the dev panel, and he normally checks for rats and token loggers but couldn't because he was asleep. The owner of Dortware, Dort, was able to see the server full of tokens, which is absolutely insane. I tried the client on an old shit laptop and the client was bullshit, full skid in my opinion. This week in milestones, Sambo78 hit 3,000 subscribers and hack hit 1,000 subscribers. I'm still going strong on 14 subscribers, so if you want more montages, more of This Week in Hacking, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm not gonna lie to you and say there's some bullshit glitch on YouTube or anything, because we all know that's not true. I'm also thinking about renaming the channel, so if you have any suggestions, please comment them below. Well, that's the end of this video. My videos have been doing quite good in the past few posts I've been active. Thank you for watching, and keep b-hotting.